Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is January the 11th, 2013, and we are in week 3 of an experiment where we are using a Google Hangout to go ahead and share a book discussion about the art and science of teaching. And we are learning how to do several different things at once. And I think this week we're actually going to get our video to play back in the Google Hangout. Last week we tried to play the video and had some technical difficulties, and we may actually be a little bit short, so not quite 45 minutes this time. Our design question this week is design question number 2, and again, the purpose of this study is to basically encourage all of our teachers in Yukon Public Schools to get into reading The Art and Science of Teaching if you've bought the book, but if you haven't bought the book and you're not required to buy the book, have an opportunity to see some videos that talk about the different design questions and the different elements within the book. So I think I may be joined here in a little bit by Adam Zadro. We did this week have a online registration, and we had 2 folks register to attend this off-site. However, as we were just configuring one of the computers here, it is necessary that you install the Google Voice plugin, and there's some things that you have to plug in if you're going to go ahead and get this started. So I'm not sure whether we'll have folks joining us virtually this time or not, but anyway, we'll go ahead and continue. So design question number 2 is, what will I do to help students effectively interact with new knowledge? And before we take a look at this week's video, I think I'll go ahead and do a screen share, go ahead and show you where the question is for this week's reflection, and remind you that you can submit that reflection for some professional development credit if you'd like to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and try and share my screen, and I'm going to select one of my windows here that I'm going to share, and what I'm going to do is click over to our My Big Campus course, and if you have not already joined our My Big Campus course, you want to log into My Big Campus, and you're going to search for AST Study, and that's going to probably just show one group, our AST Study course, and you're going to need to click that and select to join, and you can be approved. There's also a code that we've distributed that you can use if you want to, but you can just request it if you don't have the code, and then you'll be in and you'll be able to see everything. And so most of the content for this course is under Pages, and we are in the week of January the 28th, Interacting with Knowledge. And as you scroll down here, this link was broken for some reason earlier in the week, and that got fixed today. So this is the video that we're going to watch today. Option 2 is what we're doing right now, and that's a face-to-face and virtual discussion group. And then option 3 is this one, and that is to submit a reflection about this week's topic. So I'm going to go ahead and click that so you can see what that is. And the question this week is to describe in your own words one of the following formal techniques: reciprocal teaching, jigsaw, or concept attainment. So describing one of those three topics is your question of the week. So I'll go ahead and turn off the screen share. And we had some issues with our content filter last week where it did not want to allow us to play the YouTube video through the Google Hangout, and so we've worked around that this week, and so I'm going to go ahead and start the video. So this is about an 8.5-minute video. I know that some of the teachers on some campuses, I think at SheDeck, they were gathering after school to go ahead and watch the video and discuss it together, which is awesome. We certainly, you don't have to be doing this virtually with us. This is honestly about as bleeding edge technology as we end up getting, because this isn't a fully tested solution that we've done with Google Hangouts. And so anyway, we're learning things with our content filter and with reminders and things like that. Hey, and look, Adam is joining. Look at that. Yes.
Hey.
How are you?
I figured we'd show off a little bit of this technology today.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Great. Well, I just basically did a little screen share just showing what the reflection question was, if people want to. Not that we're encouraging everybody to teach to the test, but hey, if you can know what the question is in advance, sometimes that helps as we watch the video. So
cool.
All right. Are you connected?
Who's joining us today?
Well, we've got a couple folks that registered virtually, but the problem was I put the announcement for this on the PD calendar, and so I got a invitation to it, but I didn't have any control over recording. And so I think the error was I needed to initiate this from my calendar, so I was the owner. So I ended up quitting out of that one and then starting this new one that I sent the link to. So kudos to you for finding the right link. Did you get it from the email, or how did you get it?
I got it from the email.
Okay. All right. Very good. So one of the things that we were going to do, I guess, was kind of talk about, before we showed the video, talk a little bit about our prior knowledge. But in full disclosure, for those of you that may be actually watching this recorded, I have only read a partial amount of this week's chapter and scanned the rest. So part of the reason I'm wanting to do this is because I need encouragement to be able to get into these chapters and dig into all these things. So of the three sections that or the three questions that we have this week to talk about, and I'll share this again. Really, the only one I'm familiar with is jigsaw. The other is to describe reciprocal teaching, jigsaw, or concept attainment. So, Adam, before I play the video, I'll put you on the spot. Do you have a quick, elevator speech explanation of either concept attainment or reciprocal teaching? If not, that's okay, because we're going to see the video and hopefully we'll be enlightened by Dr. Marzano.
Yeah, well, I will just say that it's very timely that we're doing this section today. Our literacy first training today was using reciprocal teaching as one of the strategies with the flex groups within the literacy first model. And the little bit that I've gleaned from it, and I can tell you that it's been a while since I've read this section of the book as well, is it really is a strategy, and we'll get some more info here as we jump in to see if I'm correct or not. Reciprocal teaching is basically a teaching and then student reteaching model, where you have instruction delivered, and then the student, I don't want to say regurgitates, but
well, it's like a co-teaching, where the student becomes a co-teacher along with the teacher. Yeah. Great. Good. Well, let's see what he has to say in the video about that, and then maybe we can elaborate a little more. I know one of my favorite professors that I had in my graduate program had that kind of a model. He had the tutorial model where we had to actually meet with him individually and answer questions, which was quite a challenge. But then he always had a co-teaching as well. So that may be a strategy familiar to others, but it may not be under that name. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and choose to use the YouTube share here, and I've loaded up our video for this week, and this is about 8 minutes long, so we'll take a look at that, and then we'll chat about it a little bit, and that's going to be it. So we're definitely wrapping up at 4:45 today, because I have got an appointment at 5 o'clock, so we won't be going late. So anything to add, Adam, before we jump into this, or anything you'd say about? I mean, I'll say this about this chapter. I think this is the chapter that I wish some of my own children, to the teachers of some of my own children, had an opportunity to study and get into, because as they've done things like copy just all the vocab words out of the textbook and even copy the textbook, there are so many different strategies that we have to try to get kids to engage with content. And we've definitely got to be more creative than the textbook. So
well, I think that this is the first section of the whole model that really gives the first tangible look at what does it look like for the teacher to transition their role from the deliverer of all knowledge to kind of that guide on the side mentality of what a true collaborative classroom looks like, not only collaborative from student to student, but from student to teacher.
So. Absolutely, the facilitator. Okay, hey, and I didn't ask you, is my audio too loud? Do I need to tone it down? I've got my mic plugged in. Is it okay?
No, it's not tweaking or anything on my end, so you're good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, let's take a look at this video, and then we will talk about it. That's work. Yay. So actually, for the record, we're on my Verizon card. There's some kind of filtering thing with YouTube when it's going through the Google site. So Jason is helping trying to kind of work that out. But I'm thrilled that played through there. So it got recorded. Thoughts? I took a few notes, but do you have anything that jumped out at you, Adam, or things that are particularly relevant, or things you hadn't thought about, or maybe things that you are working with teachers, like you mentioned reciprocal teaching today with the literacy first training?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that jumped out to me, first of all, one of the great fun side effects of doing virtual meetups like this is we get to hear my son in the background. So if you hear weird noises coming, that's not me.
It's all right.
No, I think that the thing from the video specifically that jumped out at me, even aside from the reciprocal teaching, and some of the areas of focus that we talked at before the video started, was this idea of that graphic, that kind of three-part graphic that they threw up of the running notes, the non-linguistic representation, and then that summary. And my mind immediately went to, and it's probably because I share an office with you, Wes, of what that could look like in a digital universe between running notes in a blog environment, non-linguistic with some of that narrative art that we've kind of been talking about, I've been working on with teachers, and then that summary, and what that would look like in a digital environment, whether we were in a computer lab, a one-to-one environment, an iPad lab in the classroom, iTouches. My brain immediately went to, okay, that's a very traditional note-taking style that we've seen for a long time in classrooms all over the district. What that could look like now, moving them from some of those non-linguistic representations coming from images, videos that they're pulling offline to actually share and collaborate with fellow students. So that's where my brain went. Slightly off track from what I think the section of the book is actually about, but I think that's kind of naturally where our bent is.
No, that was one of the things that I was thinking about too. I'm going to be a little geeky here, and we'll try to see if this works. There's a little screen share to my iPad, because when we do, let's see if we can do this. When we now, does that work? Are you seeing the iPad?
I'm seeing yours. Let me click on it here and pull it up.
Is it showing the iPad, or did it go back to?
It's getting there slowly. Yeah, it's coming into focus. Yeah, there it is. Yeah,
okay.
It's gone back to you.
It has gone back to me. Huh. Yeah, I did. All right. Well, maybe we'll try this one more time. Screen share. This iPad screen.
There it is.
All right.
Oh, that's it. It may be for some reason when you jump back in with audio. I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, I was thinking about the non-linguistic representation too, because one of the things that I've been kind of writing up here as I'm working on a book is, Marzano's 2004 book was Classroom Instruction That Works. And so he identified, 12 different strategies that research has shown increase student achievement. Things like providing recognition, parent involvement, time on task, and non-linguistic representation. So I just recently learned about a free iPad app. I like the app Brushes, which is like $5. But there's one called New Kids Draw, N-E-U instead of N-E-W, New Kids Draw. And I would love for us to explore this with our campuses that have, some iPad carts, and be able to take those into a class and, ask the kids, and it might be after a lesson, I don't know what the timing would be, but essentially, having them digitally represent different concepts. And so he mentions chunking in this lesson, which is key. And, if as a class we chunked the lesson that we maybe had the day before and then broke it into 4 or 5 pieces, then those groups went and visually, came up with a representation of that. I think that'd be great. And of course, we don't have to do that with iPads. We could just do that with paper and pencil. And then we could, use the technology to take a picture of that and then have kids talk about it. But I love this stuff because it fuels how I see us needing to be using technology, because it's not just about the apps and playing the game, but let's have the students use the different tools they have, and that might be technology, to engage in these kinds of learning behaviors or these learning tasks. So anyway, I was immediately thinking about drawing too. what did you think about reflection? Are you seeing, you're working with teachers in all different schools? How have you seen teachers and students reflecting on learning? Have you seen some great examples of that, or how do you think we are or aren't doing that today?
I would say that is, I think in most educators across the board, and not just in Yukon, that reflection time or closure time or locking the door time, whatever you want to call that, really seems to be the area of lesson planning that gets the least amount of attention. But it's the area of lesson planning that research, not just Marzano, that research tells us is probably the most crucial in students putting it into, as Bob said in the video, that long-term memory bank in their brain. And so I would say that I see teachers across the district that are experimenting with that idea, but it usually comes in a 60-second to 2-minute wrap it up before we head out to our next special or whatever, and really looking at how do we show and place value in our lesson planning of planning legitimate reflection and closure activities so that we do, quote, lock that door or lock that memory into the brain so that when students leave that learning environment, that new knowledge travels with them. So I would say that that's something that I would see in my position here in Yukon. For me, is definitely a top priority in working with teachers on doing that.
And I like how we see the example teachers, using a lot of note cards, having the exit tickets. I mean, hopefully in the next 5 years, for sure, maybe sooner, we're going to be like I've learned, Clinton, Oklahoma, they've done a bond. Every fifth grader and above has an iPad. Every kindergartner through fourth grader has a device. It's always challenging right now with digital devices because kids don't have those in their fingertips. But hey, you can have a note card. And so I love the idea of, it doesn't have to be this big spiral notebook. It doesn't have to be, let's just take a note card. Let's take 10 minutes at the end of the lesson. Let's write those things and be able to capture them. The thought I had was, we've got our professional development day coming up on the 15th. I'm convicted to think about, all our teachers have laptops. They all will have the ability to do this digitally. So maybe I should leave 10 minutes at the end of at each of my sessions and ask teachers to write a short paragraph, summarizing what they found valuable in the lesson and then reflecting. Because I really think that all classrooms could benefit from an interactive space like a blog to be able to write. And there's a lot of ways to use that, and certainly writing teachers immediately think of, they can do their persuasive essay, they can share their poetry, they can share, the things that they're doing, but everybody could reflect on what they have learned and do it in a meaningful way that's more than just, doing the student feedback things and stuff is okay, but if students have to write an open answer, I don't know about you, but I don't know if shocked is the right word, but it's always eye-opening to take a look at where students are in any class with writing when you just say, here, openly respond. And I'm talking about undergraduate pre-service teachers as well as, fifth graders or other kids that are in our buildings. So that might be a strategy that we could suggest with the teachers that are doing the blogs, but maybe it's something that we can model with professional development. This will be the first professional development day on February 15th where all of our teachers, K-12, have a laptop. So I don't know.
Well,
what do you think?
And me, because I've become the peddler of my big campus, I immediately think, well, what a nice, easy, seamless environment to do that. Yeah, let's set up a My Big Campus group for all of your sessions, of my sessions, and give them that 5 to 10 minutes. I think it's valuable because, these trainings that we're providing, the same way that we want students to lock new knowledge into their brain, we want these teachers to take these strategies and ideas and resources, lock them into their teaching tool bank, if you will, toolbox, and use it in their classroom. And if we give them that time to reflect, lock that into that memory bank, I think it would be extremely beneficial.
Right. The other reason I think that'll be good is because in this, whenever I teach a professional development session, my temptation is always to pack too much in. And I think a lot of teachers probably feel that pressure because of so much content and the tests and things that are coming. It's just our tendency is to cover more rather than take time to provide reflection. So maybe by planning to have that 10 minutes of reflection time where we're writing, that's the exit ticket, then maybe we can, or maybe I can, actually plan less. And that gets back to what Marzano talked about, not just the chunking, but wasn't the first thing like identifying the key input somethings? What was that? I'll cheat and look in my book. But basically identifying what the key pieces are, critical input experiences. Mm-hmm. So, again, for professional development, we have a chance to maybe try and model this to say, for this session, these are the three key, goals and objectives, but what kind of
that really helps talking about what did you call it? The critical, what was the language?
Critical input experiences.
That right there, thinking about, okay, I've got a broad lesson over the respiratory system. It's a lot to cover. What are those critical input pieces? And that can also inform where and how I write my learning goals for that entire unit. What are those key pieces that need to be covered at a greater depth? That's
right.
where I'm going to want my closure to be. That's where I'm going to want the majority of my focus in instruction to be. So, yeah.
All right. Well, here's the hook for those folks who are going to be writing their reflections about reciprocal teaching, jigsaw, or concept attainment. One of the other resources we have, it's not available for everyone, but we do have some copies of this handbook that they've put out to accompany the book, and on pages 62 and 63, they do talk about these three. I'll talk about jigsaw real quick, and Adam's already mentioned reciprocal, and then we'll mention concept attainment. I remember my social studies content area class getting certified. I did the post-bac certification thing, and this is one of the strategies that we learn, and I've done it a bunch of times. And the jigsaw basically involves expert groups. So you will break the kids into groups. You'll have some kind of material. Maybe that's a sheet of paper that has something that they're going to read. It could be a video that they're going to watch. It could be some activity they're going to do. But basically, they're going to take part of the lesson, maybe 10 minutes, and they're going to become the experts on that particular station. I did this activity. This was back in the late 90s, mid 90s, when Yugoslavia was breaking up and all this stuff. We had different people that were key players in that. Madeleine Albright, I remember this because I had written this whole article about this. You had Slobodan Milosevic. He was the Serbian leader of Yugoslavia that was accused of genocide, and who was in there besides the Serbs, the Croatians. And then you had other people. So in that case, we had people kind of take on, get as much knowledge as they could about that person, and then you jigsaw, and so you go to different groups where there's one representative of each group in there, and then they're responsible for writing it down. So you might have, like a table laid out with 4 different characters in that case. You get to be the expert on one, and then you go and listen. So it's similar to reciprocal teaching, I guess, because you're having students be the teachers, but they're only being responsible to sort of master one chunk of it or one piece, and then they go back and share that with their peers. So of those 3, that's the one I'm most familiar with. So this says reciprocal teaching involves having small groups of students responsible for discussing and analyzing. They take turns serving as the discussion leader who raises and facilitates questions, like what are the main ideas, what questions do we have, are there areas we need to clarify, what predictions can we make. So that gets to the point of open-ended questions that require elaboration, and then letting students literally step up and take a leadership role in facilitating that kind of discussion, which would be pretty challenging.
To interject there really quickly, the reciprocal teaching idea really focuses in on 2 areas that we've really seen, to go back to our first conversation, in our testing environment, where we've seen some of our students' lowest scores is at predicting and inferring. And the 4 main focal areas of the the reciprocal teaching model is predicting, summarizing, clarifying details, and then open-ended questioning. And so to incorporate those into daily instruction with new reading, new concepts, it would be extremely valuable.
Absolutely. And you know, because that's you're asking kids to step outside the box if they're going to predict and infer. And so often we're at the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy when we're having kids, and I'm not talking about Yukon schools here, I'm talking about an Oklahoma City school situation, but who knows, it probably happens everywhere. When we just have kids write down the definitions and the vocabulary, that's a rote learning kind of situation. But when we ask them to predict or to apply in a different context or to infer, you know, that's moving up Bloom's taxonomy, and it's not abandoning the lower level learning. They're still going to get those definitions, but they're going to go beyond that. And yes, it shows, I mean, that those are things that are tested. The tests are asking kids to do that. Plus, we just know that the learning is going to be deeper when they have to think and apply the concepts instead of just, you know, memorizing.
Well, and to marry, you know, our goal here always is how do we marry what Marzano's talking about with our Common Core standards, with everything that we're, you know, all the other initiatives that we see being rolled out in Yukon and in other districts. And my mind immediately jumps to, we know for certain, in talking with Common Core folks and the park folks, that that's the exact type of assessments that our students are going to be jumping into when it comes to what these new tests are going to look like through the park folks, of reading an excerpt and being asked to respond in writing, inferences, opinions, clarifying details. No longer is it going to be simply pick that vocab word out of context and give that definition. It's going to be
Right.
read it. And even with our 5th and 8th grade writing test, they're going to be asked to read excerpts, form opinions, create logical arguments, and express that in writing. Those are skills we've got to begin working on.
And some of the presentations I've seen about those park assessments, you know, are kind of a shock and awe fear approach. And who knows, maybe that's how this is going to play out. Maybe we're not going to really realize what's going on until that first assessment comes out. Kids do that, and if we haven't been challenging them to think it, you know, with their higher order thinking skills, then I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
We will have a unique window. We will have a really unique window this April with the writing test. They're going to roll out the test that we will be assessed on, but then
really?
day one will be our true assessment, and day two is going to be a field test that's going to give us a picture of what those new, at least in the writing universe, what those writing assessments are going to look like. So we'll have a unique opportunity before the shock and awe hits next year, if you will,
right.
to kind of get a glimpse at that. So that's something for our teachers to take note of.
All right, last thing. Your challenge, if you're writing your reflection question, was to describe reciprocal teaching, jigsaw, or concept attainment. And basically, concept attainment, which I'm sure someone taught me some time ago, involves examples and non-examples. So students not only being able to identify those when they're provided, but being able to generate those themselves. So if they can generate examples and non-examples of the concept, then, you know, that there's going to be a greater probability that they're understanding the concept. So it's something that could be done as a whole class activity, you know, where you can come up with those. But even better, if the students are able to, you know, generate those kind of things. I mean, that, you know, could be done in a game show format, or you could be doing Jeopardy, or there'd be all kinds of ways to do that. But moving beyond just teacher-created concept attainment curriculum to student-created would be awesome. And that would be another way the technology could come in, because, you know, you could have students creating examples and non-examples, and then you could have those available for other kids to use, listen to, look at, and then talk about.
And, you know, there is a fear element of, you know, when we talk about non-examples, students producing misinformation and how much misinformation will be. But the beautiful side of students producing non-examples is then they're then given the opportunity to discuss and unpack why these are non-examples.
Absolutely. And you're going to get a window into what they know. So much easier to just present it, say, everybody got it, 2 seconds of wait time, thumbs up, okay, good. Versus having them produce and create something, and then, oh my gosh, they got it wrong. Well, okay, that's not a bad thing, because now we get to dive in and say, what did we not understand? Let's reteach and all that. So, all right, well, my clock says 4:44. I think I'm going to end the broadcast. If it's okay with you, Adam, I may excerpt or see if I can copy the discussion part of this that we did, because we can't publicly share this whole video that has the Marzano piece in it. I'm glad that we got to record it today, but we might share this other piece, because I am so thankful that you're here, because let me guarantee you, we would not have sat here for 30 more minutes with me trying to talk to myself about this. Yeah. And hopefully, maybe we should just do this online too. The idea of doing some of these around schools would be that, we get some folks to come and attend. I don't know.
It worked out beautifully. As I was hopping in my car to hustle back over, I realized, wait a second.
Absolutely. That's what this is all about, man. Being able to place shift. And then if people want to time shift, they can do that too. So, all right, well, do you have a last nugget of just insightful thoughts on engaging with knowledge and having students? What's your last piece of advice to teachers on this design question?
Don't be afraid of giving over control of your classroom to your students. I think that's the #1 way to engage students and help them create new knowledge. Let go of control of the classroom. That's, I think, the #1.
And that's what all these strategies have in them. Those three is students are playing a more primary role in not just receiving the knowledge, but in facilitating discussion and getting the class to be talking and engaging. So good advice. All right, we're done. Adios, everyone.